You are Locked On Bulls Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Chicago on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Bulls Postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. My name's Joe George. You find me on Twitter at JoeGeorge92. Hit that subscribe button. We're here after every single Bulls, Bears, Cubs, and Notre Dame game. So the Chicago Bulls win tonight's game 139-124 over the San Antonio Spurs. They moved to 10-13 on the season for this back-to-back. They've got tomorrow night versus the Indiana Pacers. It was a fun one for the Bulls. They got a big lead early, mostly thanks to the bench, but the Stars really took over in the second half and really just kind of kept the lead. The Spurs made a couple big runs, so we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the bench more in the second segment of the show and just what we saw from a bunch of these guys tonight, really an all-around team effort. And then a cool little stat there for the end of the night there. We'll kind of focus on Ayo and what he did in this game, but the Bulls accomplished something that they haven't done since 1993, which is absolutely incredible when it's Ayo DeSumo and Josh Giddey doing that. But look, the Bulls early in this game, right away, we see them kind of going back and forth early on with the Spurs, but they go on a 7-0 run. It's 5-5 at that point. They go on a 7-0 run. It's 12-5, and the Spurs call a timeout, and then very quickly there, the Bulls start to just absolutely take off. It's 36-32 at the end of the first quarter. Ayo's got 9 points. Dalen Terry's got 7. And this is my favorite part of the first quarter in this fast start for the Chicago Bulls tonight. They're 31 of their 36 points in the first quarter of this game came from the three-point line or the paint. They had 3 for 5 from the three-point line in the first quarter. They were attacking the paint. Stacey King keeps bringing this up, and it's not my favorite thing to talk about when I'm talking about sports in general. It's KYP, know your personnel. Without Victor Wembanyama out there, this is one of those teams where it's almost like the opposite of the Orlando Magic, right? This is the one team where you have size advantage over the San Antonio Spurs, and they were just attacking in the paint early in this game, and really most of this game. It's part of the reason why they had such success early on, even when the bench group was in. And of course, look, Vooch ends up with 39 points in this game. Could have got 40 if it wasn't for a little announcer jinx there at the free throw line. But Vooch absolutely dominated this game. And when he got to 30, they said it was a quiet 30. How do you have a quiet 30? I don't know, but he had it because I didn't realize in the moment that Vooch was doing that well in this game. He was just doing pretty much whatever he wanted to from the three-point line, in the paint, couple Nikola Vucevic style dream shake moves that he was dropping against the San Antonio Spurs. But he was really all over the place for them. But the leader of the team tonight, besides Vooch, it was Ayo. Ayo has done such a great job in these couple games now without Kobe White being in the starting lineup. And you think about the long-term future of the Chicago Bulls and what's going to happen post-trade deadline if they're going to trade Lonzo, LaVine, Vooch. Kobe White and Ayo still is a very promising backcourt for the Chicago Bulls in the future. I just love watching Ayo play basketball. The way that he attacks the rim, the way that he was attacking tonight, he had a couple moments where he's just up and down the court. He's so fast. Billy Donovan's getting mad at him at the end of the game. Look, they needed to slow it down. He recognized that, Ayo did. But he's just back and forth, up and down the court so many times. So the Bulls get that 36-22 lead at the end of the first quarter, and we get our first, coming off of his career-high game, 20 points, Matas Buzelis. My gosh, this kid is so much fun. Hopefully his nose is okay because he was gushing like crazy there. That elbow he got from Zach LaVine, there was a lot of blood coming out of Buzelis' nose. That putback dunk was incredible from Matas Buzelis tonight. But he didn't just do that. He gets the putback. He attacks the rim. I think it was the next possession, gets to the free throw line, gets fouled, and then he immediately hits another 3 in the second quarter. That put the Bulls up 51-33. So he just continues to, as he's playing more and more. Matas Buzelis is, man, I really am enjoying watching him play basketball. It's early. I don't know what the ceiling is for this kid, but being the 11th pick in the draft, it feels like a home run already. Just the early development we've seen from Matas Buzelis and what it could potentially turn into, how comfortable he looks playing more. And what I really liked about with Matas tonight is Billy Donovan. Matas could have gone out of the game 2 separate times. He got 2 fouls quick. He got his 3rd foul quick as well in the second, or I think it was in the 3rd quarter. And Billy Donovan just left him out there. And I love that. Like this kid needs to learn how to play with multiple fouls and having to play where he's protecting himself and not fouling out of games. So I like that idea on a night like tonight where you're short-staffed already, right? You have no Kobe White, you have no Lonzo Ball, you have no Patrick Williams. So you don't really want to take Modest Buzelis off the court. So I love that strategy and just like that decision-making process of Billy Donovan of just like, I'm going to let this young kid go out there. He's got fouls early and see what he does. Because it's a learning moment. And it's a really positive learning moment to see him go out there, play good defense continually, and just not foul out of this game or get into foul trouble that forces Billy Donovan to remove him. So that's another positive thing. We're going to talk more about this next stretch here in the next segment, but then we get a big 7 to 8 minute run of Ayo, Taylor Horton-Tucker, Modest, Jalen Smith, and Chris Duarte. It's 54 to 36 when they check out. They played 8 minutes strong. I mean, it was at one point I was like, Billy Donovan going to take these guys out? Because they were just really the reason why the Bulls lead got all the way up to 20. And really from there until, pretty much the end of the third and into the fourth quarter, the Bulls did a really good job of just keeping it around 20. Now, look, we did see in the fourth quarter there, we see a couple big Spurs runs. So Terry at one point ended a 10-0 run in the fourth quarter. It was 110-99 when he made that bucket. And then they went on the Spurs did another 13-2 run in the fourth to get it back down to 10. But one of the things that we've been talking about with the Bulls on these postcast shows is how they handle, playing with a lead. And this is a game where without Victor Wembanyama out there, and once again, super bummer he's not playing, was really excited about just seeing him on the court tonight. I'm not making a lot of time to watch San Antonio Spurs basketball, so bummer he wasn't out there. But it's a team you should beat that's shorthanded, and that's what they did in this game. Like, these are games where, the Indiana Pacers, they're going to be short-staffed as well. So even though you've got a couple guys that are out, the Bulls are this, deep, okay basketball team, right? Like, we know what they are. They're not a great basketball team. They're, hovering right around 500. But when the other team's star players are out, the Bulls have enough good, depth pieces to where they should win this game. And that's what they did. So it was nice to see them hold on to these big runs that the Spurs were going on. And look, in the fourth quarter, it was Vooch and LaVine that were really getting them going. And LaVine, another good game tonight where he's not the primary scorer. Early on in this game, there was 8 Bulls players who had 6 points or more. Zach LaVine had the lowest amount of points at that point when they put that stat up. He only ended up with 11 on the night. But he has 9 assists and 9 rebounds. So nearly a triple-double for Zach LaVine. It would have been, if he would have got the triple-double tonight, it would have been the first time that 2 Bulls players had a triple-double in a game since Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan in 1989. So on the verge of something, another cool stat, we'll hit on the triple-double stat that we did get tonight from Ayo and Josh Giddey from the last 2 games. But look, the Bulls handled their business tonight. That's what you expect them to do against a team like the San Antonio Spurs, and when they were without Wemby, and they just did their job. But the bench was really impressive. Vooch was obviously incredible, and Zach LaVine just played great team basketball, and he's just doing what Ayo does. The three-point shot is still, it's not there all the time, but tonight he was 3 for 3 from the three-point line. So that's something to keep an eye on of, what can he build off of as Kobe White is out, and hopefully not out for too long. But if Ayo can get that three-point shot going, it sets the Bulls up for even more success than they can have when he's on the court. So something to just keep an eye on. So let's talk about that bench unit, that big run we saw, and what we just saw from the role players in this game. Because as much as I like the starters, it's hard not to think about what this team is going to look like post trade deadline. So there are a lot of positives. So what we saw from the rotational guys, we'll hit on that next year on the Locked On Bulls postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel. Join Chime today. Chime helps with fee-free overdraft up to $200. Your next deposit is applied to your balance. That's a great deal that you can get right now. Look, we've all been there. We've all overdrafted our account on accident, whether you just don't realize that, a paycheck hasn't hit yet, a paycheck hasn't gone. I know not many people get, actual checks anymore, but that time, those times when you're waiting for the bank to deposit the other 50% of a check, you pay some bills, you accidentally overdraft. So Chime can help you with that right now. You get spotted on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. There's no monthly fees or maintenance fees, and there's over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. You can set direct deposit in your Chime account after a qualifying direct deposit of $200+. Chime will notify you to enroll in Spot Me. With an activated debit card, Chime will spot you the $200 on debit card purchases and cash withdrawals. Your next direct deposit is applied to your negative balance. Chime never charges overdraft fees for using Spot Me. Enjoy the holidays while keeping your financial goals on track with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/NBA. That's chime.com/NBA. Chime. Feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. members FDIC. Spot Me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Direct deposits timing depends on submission of payment file. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in Spot Me and are subject to monthly limits. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs and for OTC withdrawals. Let's talk about the bench and what we saw from them tonight, because they really helped put that put the Bulls up by 20 in this game and give them a lead to where the Spurs weren't just going to come back in this one. And briefly there in that first segment, mentioned this 7-minute stretch. It was like 7-8 minutes that we got from Modest Buzelis, Io, THT, Jalen Smith, and Chris Duarte, who, with the injuries that are happening, like you would figure Billy Donovan's going to have to go a little bit deeper into his lineup. And, Julian Phillips again gets to start in this game. So he's not on the court. Io's the only starter in there. You got those modest plays, the putback dunk, the three that put the Bulls up 51-33. You got a Jalen Smith three that put them up 19. They just played really good basketball. But even right away, Dalen Terry in the first quarter, he comes out and he's just so aggressive with the way that he plays basketball. He scored, I believe it was, 7 points in the first quarter. So he's having a very good first quarter as well. And this is what you got tonight from the bench unit. You got 9 points from Jalen Smith, 12 from Dalen Terry, 11 from Modest Buzelis, 13 from Taylor Horton-Tucker. They just did everything that you could have asked for in a bench group tonight, and really, I think are the biggest reason of success in this game. That, even now outside of Vooch, who gets 39 points, and Io, who was very good, but in these back-to-back situations where I don't know what the rest of the season schedule looks like. I have to take a look. I feel like the Bulls have played so many back-to-back games. We got another one tonight and tomorrow. Just feels like they're constantly, when they're playing, it's like every other week there's a back-to-back, which is, look, I don't mind. I like the way basketball used to be. I like the way they played a lot of games and a few amount of nights, and the season was a little bit shorter. But we just don't see that very often anymore in the NBA. So the Bulls are, they're navigating these back-to-backs with minute restrictions, and certain guys can't play back-to-backs like Lonzo Ball. And so on a night like tonight where you're playing the Spurs, who are beat up themselves, have two key guys missing out of their rotation, to see your your bench guys come in and just have some success is really good. And you think about just like the long-term, implications of what this team can be and what it's going to have to be post-trade deadline, it still makes me feel good about, Dalen Terry, Modest Buzelis, potentially being in a lineup with, Kobe White and Io Dusamo and hell, Jalen Smith. That might be your starting five post-February trade deadline. It might be Io, Kobe, Modest Buzelis, Dalen Terry, and Jalen Smith. Who knows what you'll get back in these trades? So it's impossible to know if they actually, get guys that can start and play for the Chicago Bulls, or if it's going to be potentially all draft capital and stuff like that. But as Zach says here in the chat, bench group had great effort tonight. The young guys played hard. They don't quit, and they play with just so much energy. THT specifically, that dunk. All right, didn't know he had that in his bag. Didn't know THT could still get up like that. But that was an impressive dunk. Not just the dunk, but the strip that he had on that Spurs player. And he's kind of losing the ball as he's moving down the court, but go up there, slam it down. He's having a really good stretch of basketball recently. Just multiple games of double-digit points in a row for THT, and he's really kind of found his rhythm as a role guy on this roster. And then we see, this continued growth of Modest Buzelis, where he has his career-high 20 points, but he comes out tonight, he's got 11. He's shooting the ball well from the outside. He attacks he's attacking the basket really effectively. And honestly, I love the effort that he brings on defense. And that's what's great about this bench unit too, is they're littered with guys that they just change the tone of the basketball game when they come in. They move at such a quick pace and up and down the court, specifically Dalen Terry and, even Io when he was on the bench. And at this point, even when Patrick Williams eventually comes back, which sounds like we're not too far away from that, happening, I'm going to be kind of bummed when Io's not in the starting lineup and he's part of this bench unit again. It's not that I don't want Patrick Williams to return, but I just think Io has really established himself as a guy for the Chicago Bulls this year. And we kind of knew it. Like, we knew what Io was going into this year, but even with the lack of three-point shooting, I've just enjoyed watching him come, be a part of the starting lineup quite a bit. And as they get healthier, as, Patrick Williams and Lonzo and Kobe White all get healthier, and, as we kind of await for whatever is to come at the deadline, at least it's fun basketball. Like the Bulls this season have been a very fun basketball team, and sitting at 10-13 right now, if these high asking prices they reportedly have at the trade deadline, you got to think like this still is a team that in a kind of weird Eastern Conference this year is going to be able to battle it out for a playing spot. And it might not be what people want. Like, people want Cooper Flag. Like, I get it, but we're going to talk about the games that are just directly in front of us right now. Julian Phillips too, even though he's in the starting lineup, I kind of want to talk about him, what we're seeing from him as well. He's 3 for 5 tonight from the 3-point line. So he's got 9 points. There was only 3 shots he made. He missed his other 2. But he's another, he's fit into the starting lineup, I think, really well in this group of just, like, how are you going to replace Kobe White's minutes? And I think he stepped in nicely. We talked about this out in the last show. I was surprised that Phillips was the guy that, came in as the starter. I just thought it would be Dalen Terry, but Dalen and, Modest Buzelis being those first guys off the bench, it's a role that fits them really well. And I see why Billy Donovan, he's the basketball coach and I'm the YouTube host, not calling the shots of who's in the starting lineup and not. But again, like, he's pushing the right buttons. Like, he's now the officially, I think he already was. Actually, I got to think about this. I guess Billy Donovan already was the longest tenured head coach in Chicago history. But after the news today out of for the Blackhawks, it's Craig Counsell who's the second longest tenured coach. But Billy Donovan, like, I don't know what his future is either with this team. Like, I'm curious to see what their long-term plans are for him. But at least this season, for the most part, it does seem like he's pushing the right buttons. Even, early in this game when it's 5-5 and Billy Donovan calls his first time out because the Bulls started this game kind of sloppy. And they started the third quarter kind of sloppy. He's having to, reel these guys in a little bit. And sometimes I think that's the negative with this young core. It's the biggest negative, I would say. Not just the nights where they're super inefficient shooting. And look, we did see them have 19 turnovers, I think they ended it with. And I don't know if there was any garbage time there at the very end. But, another night where you have almost 20 turnovers, like, they're still a little reckless with the basketball. And, like, you take the good with the bad, right, with this team. Like, we have to take the good while we can. And it's just like Billy Donovan's kind of just pushing the right buttons. And that example of that, 7-8 minute stretch where we had with those guys, including Chris Duarte, who that might have been the most minutes he's played this season, not in garbage time, for the Chicago Bulls. It just worked out really well for them. So let's talk more about Io a little bit. We already hit on him a little bit, but some cool history made for the Chicago Bulls. Not history, but they did something for the first time since 1993. And if you had told me it's Josh Giddey and Io, I wouldn't have believed you. We'll get into that next year on the Locked On Bulls postcast here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel.
Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. I've been telling you guys for a while that this is a leg up that FanDuel is giving you that a lot of other betting sites do not, or sports books do not give you, to be able to have everything at your fingertips, to make an informed bet on the same page where you place your bets. It just streamlines the whole entire process for you. So just visit FanDuel.com today to join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $150 that FanDuel is giving you for just placing and winning your first $5 bet. So make a smart bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So for the first time since 1993, two Bulls players got back-to-back games with a triple-double. Josh Giddey in the last one, his first triple-double as a member of the Chicago Bulls. Ayo gets a triple-double in this one. Really, I'm going to give him credit for 2 triple-doubles because they took the rebound off, and that eventually kind of leads to the weird play that ends up busting up Modest Buzelis' nose. But Ayo gets a triple-double there. You nearly had one from Zach LaVine. If you would have had 2 guys, if you missed the stat earlier, that would have been the first time since 1989 the Bulls had 2 players with a triple-double in the game. But LaVine comes up a rebound and an assist short. Vuce ends up being 2 rebounds short of a double-double himself. I think that would have been his 12th or 13th of the season. So really good just individual performances tonight. But Ayo, again, just a little bit more on what he did tonight. Before we talk about besides the turnovers, the one other negative from this game that I think did stand out for the Bulls that's looking like a season-long problem for them, and something that teams will probably key on in key situations or when they need to come back against the Chicago Bulls. But Ayo just absolutely tonight, he was just attacking ferociously. And look, we know that's what he does every single night. We know that he can get the ball on one end of the court and run all the way down without looking, without hesitation. He's not afraid of the bigger guy. He is smaller than most of the guys he goes at, which is probably my favorite part about him, is just the way he can kind of contort his body and just knows what to do with it when he's going into contact with a bigger player and still finish at the rim. It's a skill set that not everyone his size, and he's not the smallest guy in the NBA, but he's obviously not the biggest either, but he just finds a way to where it's just not an issue when there's a big guy in the paint. So, and again, the three-point shooting's left a lot to be desired, but to go 3 for 3 tonight, I think we all just have to kind of, cross our fingers and hope that these struggles are going to kind of right themselves in a very positive way for Ayo, and he's going to start to figure that out. And Giddey, his performance tonight, like not his best performance. He's 8 points, 1 for 1 from the 3 line. He's got 4 rebounds, 4 assists. A couple fouls that were not great. I'm glad they didn't, call that when he hit the Spurs player a flagrant 1. The fact that they were even review it, like I know they kind of have to because it's contact with the player's head, but I'm very glad they didn't because in today's world, where a lot of sports are kind of soft, I personally thought they were going to call flagrant 1, so I was glad to be wrong there. So besides the turnovers, great night for Ayo. So the turnovers are obviously something that are plaguing the Bulls this season. That as well as they shoot, they are just constantly reckless with the basketball. That Ayo, Dalen Terry specifically, I think is really guilty of this. Zach LaVine obviously is pretty guilty as well. One of the turnovers, we're going to talk about this for a second. The play in which the ball was clearly out of bounds on the Spurs. On the Bulls. And it should have been the Spurs ball. And then Josh Giddey gets the ball back. I think it was from THT on the inbound pass. That was the fastest 8-second backcourt violation I've ever seen in my life. That was as makeup calls ever get. And I know sometimes, I guess you got to take care of the other team. You don't got to call it like that. You don't have to call it that fast. I don't even know if the referee counted a 4, 5, and 6. I think he just went 1, 2, 7, 8. It's like, listen to my 3-year-old son count numbers. It was so fast at that point. But my gosh, that was the biggest makeup call I've seen in a long time in the NBA. But besides the 19 turnovers, and look, the Bulls conceded 33 points off those turnovers. Some of that is what led to these 2 big runs that we saw from the Spurs there in the fourth quarter. But the other part of the Bulls, look, I know things are different. I know Syracuse I don't think Syracuse even plays the zone anymore. Oh my God, do the Bulls struggle when another team throws a zone out there? They're terrible at running it themselves. We haven't seen it in a while, but I think back to the first couple games of the season, specifically I think that first game versus the Pelicans, they ran it and it was awful. They had no idea what they were doing on defense. But they equally have no idea what they're doing on offense when these teams are throwing zones out there. It's really challenging when you have all these back-to-backs, you have limited practice time, but I think it might be something the Bulls need to start to work on a little bit because they just struggle against a zone so much. And you would think a team that shoots the ball really well, passes the ball pretty well, would find a way, has a big guy in the middle and Vooch, would find a way to not struggle so much. But it's just they all kind of forget what it was like to ever face a zone in basketball. And we just saw the Spurs do that when they were trying to make a comeback there in the end. But I give the Bulls credit. A team that has, been down big this season and come back in a big way. A team that's had, good leads and choked them away pretty easily. But tonight, where the Spurs are making a run there, and maybe it's a different story, just totally, even just the comeback. Even if you have this big lead and Victor Wembanyama is out there, maybe it's a different story tonight for the Bulls. But in the end, what matters most is they got the win, and they got a back-to-back. So we'll be back here on the Locked On Sports Chicago YouTube channel tomorrow as well. As soon as the game wraps up, we'll be live here. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Wherever you get your audio as well, Apple, Spotify, wherever it's at, the Locked On Bulls audio feed is there as well. So if you're missing part of the show on YouTube, you want to listen on your way to work, you can go there, subscribe. Plus, they drop daily Locked On Bulls podcasts as well, kind of talking more just the day-to-day, big picture grind of what's going on with the Bulls. They just dropped one recently about, if the Bulls were asking for too much value or if they're asking for the right value for Vooch and LaVine at these guys at the deadline. Can't recommend listening to that enough as well. My name's Joe George. You find me on Twitter at JoeGeorge92. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be back tomorrow night after the Bulls game. And plus on Sunday, just a reminder, Sunday's going to be a fun one. The Bulls play at 12 o'clock. So we will do a Bulls postcast show as soon as the game is over. The Bears kick off at 3:25. So we will basically go watching the Bulls postcast show, watch the Bears with Thomas Brown in his first game as a head coach of the Chicago Bears, and then we'll go into a Locked On Bears postcast there as well. So hit that subscribe button. Thanks for hanging out as always. We will talk to you tomorrow night after the next Bulls game. Peace.